How far, my people? Welcome back to No Gree Entertainment. I'm your host, Drew. I'm here joined with my co-host, Ant.
Yes, sir. How y'all doing today? How are you doing today,
I'm
bro?
doing good, bro. How are you?
I'm good, bro. Happy Good Friday,
Good
by the way.
Friday. Good Friday. It's a good day to
Mhm.
sit back, reflect on Christ's sacrifice and what it
Mhm.
means to have salvation through Him.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's,
facts.
it's a good Friday. But like besides that, I wanted to address something on the podcast today. People keep commenting on our videos. How do they have a straight face? There's no way they're discussing this with serious faces. But I just wanted to ask, like, what's funny?
Beats me.
Yeah. So the other day, this week, I had to go to three different grocery stores on a quest for eggs. Zero eggs in stock,
Really?
completely barren. And people just want to convince me like it's a big coincidence. You know, each store that I went to, I saw a highly tactically coordinated group of Ghanaians walking out with crates, and people just want to think I'm crazy. And I don't know what our Ghanaian brothers and sisters are doing. If they're trying to hoard all the protein for some like genetic dominance down the line, or if they're trying to like do some kind of spiritual Ghanaian awakening with the eggs, beats me. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't take any of the topics that we talk about on the podcast lightly. That's why those comments really offend me. You know, what's your take? Like, what do you think about this whole situation?
Yeah, I feel like obviously we're not smiling for a reason. None of anything we say shouldn't be taken as a joke. Nothing. I feel offended that people are generally like laughing. I feel like it's a slap in the face in a way because they don't take it serious.
Yeah. Nah,
So
for sure. It's like we're pouring out our wisdom and our how we actually feel about the situations at hand. People are, oh, how are they laughing? And I'm even seeing like laughing emojis. Like, what's that about?
man,
It's really
just
weird.
unserious.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you before we were recording today, you told me something. You were like, you had a change in heart on the topic we were discussing earlier on if it's appropriate to even chew fufu or how many bites is appropriate, for a man to eat and y'all have to when he's eating fufu. So kind of just wanted to re-ask you that, like, since you had that change of heart, how many bites are appropriate?
Yeah, I did go on an epiphany, and I had an awakening. The real answer is there's no amount of bites, like limitless. You can eat as many bites as you want. I don't know why we as Africans we're swallowing giant baseballs and softballs to uphold our culture. To me, it's just weird and it's just senseless. Like we're swallowing huge Tylenol pills just to respect or for respect. I mean, what's that about? Honestly, I feel like if I'm paying dental insurance in America, I'm gonna use my teeth. Best believe when that cassava hits my tongue, my molars are gonna chew it. So to me, it's just dumb. It's ridiculous. I don't know what kind of chokehold our people are in, but that's my take.
All right, so what you're telling me is if I were to put a bowl of fufu and a goosey in front of you just to see your animations and see how you attack it, you're telling me you would indulge in it like it's Hubba Bubba Gum?
Yes, I would chew it like it's Hubba Bubba gum. And if that makes me an oyebo, just hand me some khakis, hand me some Hey Dude shoes, and call me Brad, bro. I think it's dumb.
I ain't gonna lie, you deserve your odogu status removed for that. Like, you deserve a noogie for that, honestly. But we'll talk about that later.
See, I don't know what y'all Africans do back home, but here in America, we chew our food. I'm gonna chew my food. Since we're on the topic of getting my odogu status revoked, um, I do want to confess something as well. From one of my grandma's birthday in the past years, I essentially went on Google Translate and wished her a happy birthday. I pasted, what I wanted to say in English, and I copied and pasted it in WhatsApp and sent her happy birthday, grandma, in Igbo. And it's been eating up at me for the past year. So I just want to get your thoughts. If I have to use AI or if I have to use Google Translate to wish my grandma a happy birthday, um, does my Dogu status get revoked?
Yes, bro. Like, I ain't gonna lie, that's strike two. Like, honestly, think about like the optics of this situation. Like, you're essentially putting that, heartfelt message and you're selling it to, Silicon Valley to, give you a broken English version that you send to your grandma.
Mm,
That's not right.
yeah.
I feel like at that point you're a tourist in your, family tree. you're selling out essentially. Because if you can't at least have guess to call her, just be like, grandma, how happy birthday. So, I feel like that's a lot better than selling out in a way, and going on Google Translate just to wish her happy birthday.
Yeah,
I feel like you deserve some strikes for that, but we could talk about that later though.
yeah, yeah. I already apologize. I apologize to Chineke as well. Because I feel like I just committed treason against my bloodline. But
Yeah,
it's been eating up at me. But yeah, thank you for that. I'm gonna like change my ways.
yeah. So I got a question for you, bro.
Mm.
So about like 2, 3 years ago, I was chilling in my living room and whatnot. It was like Christmas break. I'm just enjoying my break, or whatever. Random Tuesday afternoon. And next thing you know, it's like 3, 4 random African aunties and uncles like I've never seen before, never seen in my life. They bombard into our living room and they just start singing praise and worship, saying, "Thank you, Jesus, for journey mercies and, safe travels and all that." I'm lost because, I'm like, what the heck is going on? You know what I mean? Who are these people? I kind of get the memo of what's going on when like two aunties come up to me asking me when I'm gonna be able to take their bags upstairs, and then one uncle's coming up to me asking me where his food's at, and then the other auntie's asking me, where the guest towels are at. So I'm really, starting to see it for what it really is. Like these people think this is like a hotel business, basically, essentially. So my question to you is like, how many relatives can be in your house at once until your house can be considered an illegal hotel business without a license?
That's a really good question. I think honestly, at the third relative, that's like, all right, like what are we doing? At when Auntie Precious starts, I actually think it starts from the moment that Auntie Precious walks in the door and drops her big suitcase that has Ghana must go taped on the side of it and starts singing Ekenedi Chineke. Thank you, Jesus, for safe journey, for journey mercy. I feel like at that point, you already know what you're about to get yourself into. Like you said, the third relative, the two aunties asking to take the bags. Okay, I'm like, I'm starting to notice. But at the third one, when Uncle Chuka and Mecca starts asking, where my food at? That's when you start towing the line. That's when you start, offering complimentary breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You start doing all those things. Yeah, I think the third relative.
Yeah, by that third relative, once you see that third relative walk in, your break is over with,
Yeah,
because you're gonna be essentially spending your whole break tending to them,
yeah.
and it's not gonna be a second you'll be able to rest at that point.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. I even have experience with that as well, but it's a story for another day.
Yeah, indeed.
So the other day I was sitting in Starbucks and a guy with the Patagonia fleece zip up, he walked in with his 13-inch MacBook Pro. He sits down and I'm observant. So I see that he's texting three different women named Blessing on his phone. Immediately I knew this guy is Nigerian because I saw he was also, doing Python code on his laptop as well. So it kind of brought me to the question: why does fear Nigerian men only apply when the guy has a beard and a tech job? Is there some kind of correlation with that?
That's a really good question. It's definitely a hidden psychology behind it. And, as a tech bro myself, I hate to admit, but it's for good reasoning. You probably know a good 6 to 7 dudes named Olu, Femi, T Man, even, that have a, tech job and a beard and have caused detrimental damage to, the innocent souls of plenty African women out there. You know what I mean? It's not a coincidence. Harvard studies show that about 96.7 men that major in computer science, have a beard, and have a tech job are more likely to cheat on you than any other man. Like the numbers don't lie. You know what I mean? So I feel like, it's definitely for good reasoning. I feel like when they say, fear Nigerian men, specifically with the tech job, they're not doing it on purpose. It's definitely for good reasoning. I feel like we got to look at the optics of the situation, look at, past, history, and, everything starts to add up from there.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good analysis. Yeah, I already knew he was a Nigerian by the way, by his movements, pretty much his animation package, even the way that they text with the middle finger. I already know he was Nigerian. So yeah, I think it's definitely for good reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, gotta be.
I remember this one time I low key forgot to take the meat out the freezer. And my mom, she came back from work. She was low key already stressed out, rambling about how work was stressful and all this other stuff. So when she walks in and sees the meat not in the sink, thawing, she she wasted no time. Like I saw some, like her eyes got red, like they turned a little red, and she looks down, grabs the nearest slipper to her. She picks it up and she chucks it at me. I don't know what type of ninja reflexes I equipped that day. I don't know what type of animation badges I equipped that day, but I caught it. In midair. Everyone around, they just went dead silent. Started hearing oohs and ahs and like, oh, it's over with. And I don't know what got into me that day. Next thing my mom, she's like on 10. She's mad. She comes up to me. She's like, so you have the audacity to block my whooping. So she tries to smack me again. I dodge it, and I run out the house. So I wanted to ask you, like, is that a crime to like block an African parent's whipping or like run away from it?
Um, I actually look at it a different way. I think it's actually probably the greatest athletic achievement of your life. Catching that slipper is like catching Thor's hammer. Like you can't just do that. You have to have like some kind of spiritual strength from Chineke. So yeah, I think it's probably the greatest athletic achievement of your life. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I felt like Thanos that day,
yeah.
or not Thanos. I feel like I defeated Thanos that day.
Mm.
I definitely felt invincible. She did end up, it did end up catching up to me. She did smack me, but I felt like you know me doing that day made me realize the athletic achievements I'm able to achieve and whatnot. So
Mm. That's profound, honestly.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, I was just chilling at home. My Uncle Chidi, he came from Nigeria, so he was just stopping by. Uncle Chidi, I'm just in the kitchen. Uncle Chidi comes up to me, and he has the audacity to bring out his fist and give me a fist bump and say, "Well done." Immediately, I was appalled and just disgusted by his action. Like, think of the optics. I'm just sitting there. You come up to me telling me, well done, boss, well done." So I just want to kind of ask you, why do Nigerians say "well done"? When I'm just standing there to someone who's just standing there.
That's a good question. I feel like it's definitely a slight jab at my manlyhood.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
like, what do you take me as? You
Mm,
think just because I'm sitting here, I'm some type of dweeb, like that you can just say, "Oh, well done."
yeah.
I feel like it's just passive aggressive, sarcasm
Yeah.
in a way. 'Cause I'm just standing there. Like you said, you were just standing there, not doing nothing. They feel like, oh, they see you not doing anything. They come up to you, be like, well done. Well done for what? Like, I'm not doing anything. Like I said, you think you're better than me just because you're up doing something. What if I'm just resting?
Mm,
What if I just got done running a marathon?
yeah.
You never know that.
Yeah.
But you want to come up to me and say, well done, when I'm just sitting there, like what do you take me as?
Yeah. And I did, tell him that, and I smacked his hand. To this day, I think 2 3 weeks later, he still has a scar on his hand. But I had to teach him a lesson. Don't take my work ethic as a joke. I don't take lightly to that kind of offense. It's really just passive aggressive sarcasm, like you said.
Hmm.
So well done, Nigerians. We should really stop saying that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So literally, like just last week, I was at this wedding reception, African wedding reception or whatever. So they had jollof rice, fried rice, all them foods. So I get my plate of jollof. The dude behind me gets his plate of jollof, and we're sitting at the same table. So we go back to our table or whatever. I'm ready to indulge in my eats or whatever. And next thing you know, I start hearing like blowing. I start hearing, and I look over, because it must have been the wind. So when I look over, I see the grown man, the fully grown man, has a beard, probably has kids, you know, blowing on his food, and I'm just appalled. I'm disgusted
Yeah.
for what I'm seeing, and I'm giving him like the stankest look of all time. He's just looking at me like, "Why are you looking at me?" I wanted to slap him, but I had to keep it appropriate. I don't want to take the attention off the couple because it was their day.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I just wanted to ask you: is that appropriate for a grown man to blow on his hot jollof rice?
No. I think if I saw that, I would have slapped him. Even though it was a couple's wedding, I would have slapped him because first of all, as a grown man, why are you eating childish snacks like jollof rice? At a certain age, that's just got to stop. But I digress. Even when I was a little boy and I used to eat childish snacks like jollof rice, I would intentionally burn my jollof rice in the microwave to increase the strength of my digestive organs and increase my testosterone. I feel like if you're blowing on jollof rice or any food, like you're just negotiating with pain. And as a grown man,
Mm,
why are you negotiating with pain? You can't call yourself an adogu if you're blowing on food. To me, it's just weird. It's just disgusting, and it's just reprehensible. You know, if you need a fan to eat your jollof rice, I'm just gonna call you Asanwa. I'm gonna call you Omali Chanwa. I'm gonna call you Asampete. Just start identifying as Achalugo because you're a princess. You know, at that point, why are you blowing and negotiating with pain? It's just weird,
yeah,
shameful.
as a grown man, why are you ducking challenges in life? That's what I
Mm,
see it as. If
yeah,
you're in my circle and I'm seeing you blowing on your jollof rice, I know not to trust you in, times of trouble. If we're stranded in the middle of the road, I know
yeah,
you're gonna take the easy way out. You know
exactly,
what I mean?
exactly.
So you blowing on your food, it just shows. It's just something a child would do. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And I honestly, that day I just got up and went home. I had to dap up, my homeboy that was getting married, and I was like, I just saw something pretty unsettling. I'm just go take a nap, but
mm.
have a good marriage or whatever.
So I think I was like 6 or 7 years old. I still remember this from back in the day. But I was like 6 or 7 years old. I went to my auntie's house. This is not really an auntie, just my mom's old friend from back in the day. And she offers me food. It's my favorite food, pounded yam and egusi. And I'm really about to go in. She asked me if I want some food. I said yes. My mom, she gives me the deadliest look that it I get pierced into my soul. And from that second onward, I didn't even say another word to the woman. I was just so traumatized from that look. So I guess my question to you is, how do Nigerian mothers, how are their stares more effective than a 50-page rule book?
That's a great question. I feel like with African mothers, the second you're born or their first child is born, they equip like an attribute, which is the stare, the angry African mom stare. And I like to, compare it to like a Pokemon. It starts off small, and then as you keep growing and growing, that stare gets more and more deadlier. It's rooted in that once there, it's rooted in like 400 years of disappointment alone. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, when you said yes to that food, all your mom had to do was give you a little look, and you felt some type of, spirit in you that kept you from, saying yes to the food, right?
Hmm.
So I'm telling you, it's definitely deeper than what we think it is. Something, psychological that needs to be studied for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because to this day, there's no way that I should to have the lingering effects of that stare. Like I'm really traumatized. Like when my mom, even when she's like just looking for something and she slightly glances at me, I'll still be like shook because it just reminds me of that day. Yeah, honestly, you're probably right. It's definitely like some kind of spiritual, you know, thing.
Yeah.
So
With all the wars going on, they should probably recruit a couple African
nah,
moms,
definitely,
get
definitely.
get like the stairs going.
Yeah.
The people we're fighting against,
Mm-hmm.
gonna fall instantly. So
Just fall, drop dead.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So the other day, me and my boy Femi, we were in a car together, and Femi gets a phone call from his therapist, and he's just going on and on about how like when he was younger, his dad used to make him stand in the corner when he didn't finish his food and make him do like frog leaps and wall sits and whatnot. If when he came home with like anything less than an A, and I'm just in the driving because we're going somewhere, so I'm just in the driver's seat confused. I'm like making faces and whatnot. So he gets off the phone and I'm just like confused. I'm like, did you seriously just consult with the a woman named Becky with your childhood trauma? And I'm just confused because it's like, is this even really trauma? Like, so I just wanted to ask you, like, is going to therapy, actually healing, or is it just disrespect to your lineage?
The latter. I mean, you're paying $200 for a session for a woman named Becky tell you to ask you how did that make you feel just because your dad yelled at you to eat your beans back in 2014. I mean, if that's not disrespect to your bloodline, I don't know what is. Your dad and your grandfather actually had trauma bringing your whole family to America for you to be a first gen Nigerian immigrant, for you to cry to Rebecca on your chat Rebecca um, that daddy told you, go clean your room. That's just weird. I think it's weird.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. It
Yeah.
made me look at him different from that day
Hmm.
moving forward, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. I would delink the guy.
Yeah.
So I remember, back in 2014, it was like a little family function. Obviously, everybody was getting their food, and I went back for like sixth or seventh. So on my sixth or seventh round, my auntie Precious, she was eyeing me the whole party, but she decided to say something on that time at that time. So she singles me out, and she pulls me out of the house and starts scolding me for like 20 minutes straight in Igbo, you know. And I was just there listening. I didn't, I understand Igbo, but I don't speak. So she's just giving me all the everything, and I reply, "Biko, auntie, hapumaka," and then I just freeze there because I realize I can't speak anything else without sounding like a tourist. So I just kind of wanted to ask you, I mean, if I can understand Igbo, but I don't speak it, without sounding like a tourist, does that revoke my Odogu status?
Honestly, not really. I feel like that's a great skill to have, being able to hear or understand what they're saying. Like, I feel like honestly, you shouldn't get your local status removed for that. I feel like it's a good skill to have, to be honest. Like, and I feel like you should be able to put it on your job application as well, that you're bilingual. Because even though I can't do the other half, which is speaking. I can
Yeah,
understand.
yeah,
That's half the battle already. I feel like, if I'm able to understand what you're saying, we can still communicate. I can still do what you need me to do. I just can't, physically tell you, what I, want to say.
yeah,
I'm just do it.
yeah,
I feel like that's better in a way because, I'm just getting it done. Like it's kind of like business in a way. Like we're just handling business. I'm not talking, but I'm getting things done. So
yeah.
that's what I see it
So you
as.
think I should be able to put bilingual and listening on my resume to get
Yeah,
more job opportunities?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Your employer probably never seen nothing like that either. So
yeah,
they'll probably see that and be like, oh wow, this guy's fluent in listening. It's someone I want to have on my team.
yeah,
So
absolutely. I never thought of it like that, but thank you for validating what I
for
already
sure,
kind of suspected.
for sure, for sure.
So that's gonna wrap up our episode for today. We got a lot of topics covered. A lot of the questions that the people, the African diaspora, has been wondering. Finally settled it. We finally settled it today.
Yep.
Yeah, but thank y'all for watching. We'll keep tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yes,
Stay
sir.
blessed. Dumb glasses, bro. Fine.